Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Of course, I'm your host, DBJ, and any of you that are able to take part live in our show is a co-host here as we talk about tabletop role-playing games and all things geeky as we get distracted towards the later part of our episodes here. But we are going to finish out our character study about pop culture characters that we use for our own mind fuel for our tabletop role playing world building experiences. And we're going to take this out with The Boys. We're not just going to talk about the televised show The Boys, but literally the group of characters known collectively as The Boys. And we'll kind of break down their interactions with each other and how we can use that if we're going to bother being interested in pop culture things that influence us and excite us and give us some distractions against our normal days. Maybe we could just be influenced and inspired by those things and incorporate them into our tabletop role-playing games. So we are going to talk about the group of characters kind of collectively known as The Boys. For those who do not know, the televised show The Boys airs here in the States on Amazon Prime. It is in, boys be boys. Yeah. A little strange. It can get a little confusing to call them The Boys because that's also the name of the show, and they're not all gentlemen. It's more of it's a slang term of endearment amongst a bunch of people that gather together for a similar purpose, a combined purpose, focus. So this group of characters was loosely gathered together by Billy Butcher. Yeah. Oh no, we're not doing that. Oh man. Well, wow. The legendary Fatal RPG. Oh man. I don't know, to convert The Boys into a TTRPG. Whew. I would dare say, if I had to take it seriously, that The Boys probably would make a better, like, powered by the apocalypse style game. You wouldn't. I get the fact that there would be ones who would want to make a simulationist version of this game. But it wouldn't work out the way they think it would. Yeah. Oh, and thank you for boosting the algo. I appreciate it. Yeah, Drew's like, no, there's no excuse to ever use Fatal. I'm sure that my own system would capture them well. Okay. They would be more narrative, even though the blood and gore is a side effect, a descriptive. I would dare say it is flavor more than than actual, like, hit points and wounds and things of that nature. Because if you do that, you better make like 3 backup characters. I would dare to say. Oh, whew, man, the show, very brutal, very sexually explicit, holds no bar. It's crazy. Yeah, Drew says Starlight had obviously too high friction in season 4, thus she had troubles using her powers. Wow, a physical super powered representation of pushing oneself too far. I'm not exactly sure how your system works, Drew, but there are many indie narrative systems that use, like, what I'm thinking your friction system is, like stresses and I guess you would say emotional tethers, which the show really does a good job in pushing and pulling against those emotional tethers, especially how this last 4th season has ended with the splitting up and downfall of our heroes known as the Boys. So unfortunately, amongst the Boys, there is some massive trauma bonding amongst all of these characters. They've all suffered horrible situations amongst uh, between each other and individually that brought them together to become this ragtag group of heroes that wants to take down the most powerful Supes in the world, because superpowers corrupts and ultimate superpower corrupts ultimately and absolutely. And here I go misquoting. And the idea of the trauma bond of these characters is actually a pretty common one when it comes to establishing characters together. In the sense of, there's a number of ways to focus player characters in one direction. One of the most annoying things you can ever do in a role-playing game is you all start in a tavern and you don't know each other. And there's this awkward meta, not meta, that's what my character would do situation that takes hours, sometimes in hours. If you have horrible player characters that create characters that have no intention of bonding with each other. And the easiest way to get around that is to have built-in character focus. Hey, you're all pirates or knights or space travelers or smugglers or assassins. Listen, we're not going to play we're not going to play this artificial, well, how is it that we come together? Because we're just going to ensure that at the beginning of the game, especially me as a game master, I'm just going to ask everybody, you come up with the reason why you're loyal to this group of individuals. In this case with the boys, it's because they've all suffered at the hands of Supes, people who have been injected with and modified by Compound V, and this is why you're all together. That now, the best way to get strange bedfellows together, so for example, characters who don't have the same profession or don't have the same necessary goals, is to put strangers together in a, dare I say, exotic circumstance that makes them bond together because they've all experienced the same thing, even though they don't know each other. So an example of that would be, everybody on a school bus trip receives mutations because of a alien beam or something, or all of the characters are trapped inside of a sinking vessel that is saved by fey creatures in the deep waters or something. Meaning, like, each character may be different and come from different backgrounds, and honestly may have a personality that doesn't lend themselves to bonding with people, but because they are all under the same because they're all under the same let's hide this for just a moment. It's my Spider-Man home. Oh, shit. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's my triple Spider-Man shirt. You can't see Iron Spider down at the bottom, but he's in there. Any other two movies. You're funny, NK. But yeah, if you take a circumstance or a profession, those usually are the two simplest ways to get everyone together. It's like, hey, all of you were experimented on in the same laboratory, and go. And then, bonding with normies could be difficult, but understanding that everyone else, it's where everyone else doesn't understand the situation or the environment that you came from, and then those that have been thrown into the ring of fire work together, or even if you don't like their personalities, you all understand that you're bonded together under a curse or a mutation or being hunted, or a state secret that the deep state's coming after you about, or something like that. Yeah, and King says it's funny how often player groups are ragtag. Listen, if there's a way to be a special snowflake, many players will pick the special snowflake. And I want to run a game corporate where corporate push the players together, basically force them to be like a hip hop new band, so to speak, and puts them on tour. That's actually pretty. That's actually a pretty good idea. That's pretty funny, especially if you have a. That's weird. Especially if you have a world where maybe the game isn't about death and dying and combat. Maybe the world is pushed by entertainment and entertaining the masses, and your life depends on entertaining the masses or something. Although it could be pretty dangerous. In the Marvel Comics Mojo's world, where the character Luckshot came from, was like that. He had a murder world that was about doing nothing but entertaining the spineless masses that were Mojo's race of people. Says the tavern thing is not so bad though, because getting drunk and going off on an adventure with a bunch of strangers, that kind of thing really happens. Most of my adventures have been that way. True, I can't argue with that, right? Like there are some unforgettable events that have happened when drunken strangers get together and bond over obnoxious events and things. Yeah, is it No Way Home? I don't know. My brain was forgetting. Yeah, it's my No Way Home shirt. Let's see if I can pull this up even further. There we go. There we go. All right. now, which one's Toby and which other one is I don't. Which one's Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man? I'm not exactly sure. Going the wrong way. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Which one has the mechanical webs and which one's it's shooting out of his body hole? I don't know. Oh man. Now Juices, I think a tavern start could work if done like the cantina for a Star Wars movie, thus not a first scene and each party member already having an agenda for why they are there. Yeah, well, exactly, right? Like it's not literally the starting in a tavern. It's the starting in the tavern and no one knows each other, and 5 out of 4 players want to all sit in the corner with their back to the wall because they don't trust each other, and it's yeah. I've had enough of those instances as a newbie teenager in the RPG community that I'll never do that. That's funny. Yeah, it's because I like the most vibrant look the most. That would be, let's see, if I had to pick which one is the vibrant one, that's probably the bottom one because he's got a little bit of a there's a the metal shininess from the Iron Spider idea. Yeah, a little bit like that. Do a whole show about Spider-Man. Adventure hooked with strangers in a tavern is how I ended up sneaking into an abandoned factory in Berlin and climbing up to the roof and partaking of substances. Yeah, that would be. That's not a bad thing to do. Okay, how do I unhide? Oh, there it is. So, the boys. You could claim that maybe some of the boys may have gotten together that way, kind of, sort of. They many of them have definitely, especially Frenchie and others, may have partaken of said substances for said purposes. I'm sure. Yeah. Now, not only are they a ragtag group of characters, and usually by the term ragtag, what we're really referring to is a group of characters that normally wouldn't associate together, but they do. Here we have. Do I want to go to this picture? They won't let me do it. All right. So from left to right, we've got Frenchie, the female of the species, Billy Butcher. Of course, we got Huey and Mother's Milk. And they absolutely positively have different personalities. Their motivations, their origin story, if you will, gives them different energies when it comes to pushing forward the storyline. And I think a group of characters like this, especially as allies, can be pretty fun. I mean, even something as yeah. That's the royalty-free version, the lads. Yeah. Yeah, well, heck, you could even start off in the game. Hey, first session, we're going to be called the Strangers. Yeah. Should I participate in typical boys' behavior? Exactly. Oh man, it's funny. But even in something like a Shakespearean story where you have a literal minstrel troupe putting on a show, or maybe the player characters really do meet a bunch of ragtag individuals in a tavern that happens to tag along with the adventurers on their pseudo medieval journey of arcane power and stopping evil. But these characters kind of represent a little comedy. You could even make them, each one individually may be kind of one note, but collectively together they represent a dynamic personality interaction, very much like the dwarves in The Hobbit, as an example. Or you have a police procedural television show or movie, and the other police officers that are the secondary characters, they're the retainers, the henchmen, the hirelings, or whatnot. Can they be one note? Can they be character actors? Of course. And they fill out the story and make the world seem more alive. And therefore, their origins and personalities can reflect, they can be a microcosm of what your world is about. And I've often brought this up. Before, since we're going to talk about fun things happening in taverns, that the reason why you would want to have a tavern in your role-playing game, and it doesn't have to be a tavern, it can be any place that is a social nexus. One of the best practices is to make it a microcosm of your world building. So if the royal family if there's a civil war brewing with your royal family, have people within your social nexus start talking about those things to let the players know, giving them dropping story hooks and information dumps and things of that nature. Let the people within your social nexus, where the players arrive at the tavern, the tea house, the stone surrounded grove, the theater, the very expensive restaurant, the hookah lounge, the hot spring, whatever it is in your game world, the cantina. Drew says, great. With the mentioning of rip-off versions, I got the idea when DBJ said one note to make an RPG that is a combination of One Piece and Death Note. What would that look like? That'd be pretty dark adventure time, but so you could very, very easily put together like, hey, my world, the players crest the mountain range, and on this side of the world, everything's controlled by dragons and dragon nobility or something. And then because the players may not know it, or they haven't seen it with your random encounter table, we talk about random encounters not next week but the week after that, you can let the players understand that there's political upheaval, there's famine and disease, there is a new silver mine was discovered, there are refugees coming in from the south or whatever, and that's what happens in your social nexus. And with the NPCs, the boys as allies, they could follow the player characters, and their backgrounds and their personalities could lend themselves to dropping little story hints and little bits of flavor and knowledge into the players' laps as they travel, that, oh, I came from the south, I understand why there's refugees traveling from the south, and the players like, ooh, do tell. And like, well, This is what happened when I grew up in the South, and why I left the South and joined the ragtag group of lads and whatnot. And yeah. You're so funny. Our own tavern, the Chipotle's where one character's sister works. Sure, why not? If that's a social nexus where how many down to earth Clerks style movies or television shows have we seen where the social nexus is a bunch of young people hanging out at the back door of the local pizza shop where everybody gets a smoke and a toke, right? Like, if that is the place that when I say social nexus, it's where all the rumors come together. It's where the important people in your plot and story gather together to relax, to talk about the goings on. Many stories have some sort of social nexus, and because it happened in a plot-driven sense. Like, well, why are all these people hanging together? And in a medical show, it's always in the you often see this happening in the locker room or in the lunchroom, or characters getting together in a bedroom or something like that, and then they talk, knowledge is exchanged, and then they leave. In police procedurals, when the police talk with the criminals in a neutral place, it might be a under a bridge or overpass, under an overpass, next to a highway. It may be a restaurant that is considered neutral ground. It could be in a back alley or whatever. It's all these things. So heck, it could even be in the back of a squad car, where words are exchanged and knowledge, and we get together. So as allies, they can not only be hook droppers and quest givers and comedic, but they may also be force multipliers. So if the players, of course, do not have appropriate skills, especially depending on the region they're traveling through, the boys could be force multipliers in the sense of helping to help the players navigate, survive, get through a place. For example, if they're traveling through mountain ranges, maybe the boys are skilled with mountain climbing or using stilts to transverse a dense swamp or something, or being led through the canopy of a dense forest and walking amongst the natural but interlaced tree branches, kilometers above the floor of the forest that's never seen below or whatever. And so they could be very skilled in a thing, or maybe each individual member has a specific skill that doesn't override the players but is necessary, especially if the players are the main focus and the boys hold the fort down somewhere else. There are many games where players have access to connections, and they can use those connections for knowledge, or to get like forged documents, or to watch over bad guys because they're bounty hunters and they have to arrest the bounty hunters, but they also have to adventure. So who watches the horses when you're down in the dungeon? These group of characters known, we're not going to call them the boys, trademark. They are a group of characters, and a reason why players, especially in the OSR, would gather henchmen and retainers and followers and such, because, hey, someone needs to watch the fort. Someone needs to stay on the boat. Someone needs to watch our mounts. Someone needs to watch the prisoners that we are arresting, and that it's usually a very simple thing. It's a little meta, and it's also a reserve of characters that we can pull from to lift them up into a playable character if we'd like to later on. If something happens, maybe someone gets bored with their main character and wants them to pull back a little bit and use another type of character. A character is unplayable, usually due to death, but in your game, maybe the death doesn't exist, but something else happens. Drew already game designing. There you go. So you start talking to some people at the execution, and after the execution, you all go to a tavern together, and that's when the adventure starts. I love it. I absolutely love that idea. I once ran a game where it was a little bit of a stolen idea from the movie The Hangover, because it was inspired by The Hangover, where all of the players who didn't know each other wake up after drinking a strange concoction, and they are somewhere they had no idea where they were, and it was an adventure of how the hell do we get back home. And it was that and Star Trek Voyager put together. They all wake up someplace unknown, they look around, they gather their stuff together, and they're like, Streets of the D, what's going on there? Thanks for the algo boost. Thank you. Drew says the one-note RPG. Okay. You have to restore the one piece, all right, while reconstructing the legendary ship called Death Note. Huh. Okay. All right. Maybe the physical pieces are scattered around an archipelago of islands or something, or it could be an astral sea. I get that. Maybe if an enemy combines it together, they could. That's a little too. I was thinking of like the Death Note book, and someone's trying to like bookbind the Death Note book, but it could be something like that. I'll make Russell Crowe for it. Yeah, Master and Commander. Yeah, what a great movie. So, all right, the boys as adversaries. Now, it depends on how you'd like to do this. We could do this in a very comedic form, in the sense that maybe this group of ragtag NPCs are funny, a bit ineffectual, but they're in the way of the player characters, and they keep doing things that are counter to what the player characters want, but they aren't evil. It's the NPC that's too loud when everyone else is trying to be quiet. It's the NPC that's a spendthrift and constantly is in debt when everyone else is saying you can't spend all this money. It's if you want to get even more serious of getting away from the jokey joke, it's the party hard group of people that's constantly trying to draw the players into their machinations. I could see this being done very exceptionally well in a game like Blades in the Dark, where it is a neo-Victorian era of gangs and heists, and the adversaries would be other gang members, or even your own gang members that they're not your enemies, but their behavior is counter to your goals. So, for example, maybe they do draw the ire of the coppers who are trying to shut you down and enforce the law, and PCs are like, oh, here they go again, causing trouble, throwing bottles and spray painting on walls, and making rude gestures to the authorities. And we are literally on a heist. Like, could you please stop it? Maybe something else that could draw the players in, especially if this ragtag group of people are made up of NPCs that have an intense relationship. Dare I say, they are fetters. I'll talk about what fetters mean. They're fetters, anchors, ties, threads, strings attached to the player characters themselves, and they need to take care of these NPCs. Maybe they are very young. One or more of them are very young, and they are a dependent. Maybe one or more of them have some form of mental affliction, like an addiction or a disease or injury or something, where they need to be taken care of. It could be the proverbial siblings, where one sibling is like is a contrarian, constantly always doing the opposite of what the main player character is doing, and they're like, you're You're constantly going the opposite way of where I want you to go. Please stop doing this thing. Heck, I've got my Spider-Man shirt on, and there are movies where like Tom Holland is surrounded by his entourage, and they get themselves into various types of trouble, and he has to split his attention between fighting big baddies and punching them in the mouth, and ensuring that his friends are okay. There's many games where there's even a numerical value. There's mechanics attached to the NPCs this is a rule you could possibly steal. There's one from a superhero game, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. It is a phrase. I want to say it's I can't remember. It was a powered by the apocalypse superhero game. Wow, I can't think of the name of it. Sorry. Another game would be Wraith the Oblivion, where everyone plays a ghost and they have fetters, and fetters are like a person, place, or thing and you give it a numerical value, and in order to fuel your passions, which fuels your ghostly wraith-like abilities, you must both protect your fetters and they also energize you at the same time. So there's a reason for it. Maybe it is masks. I remember that you had to assign basically people, but people, places, and or things that you had a connection to, and you could burn those connections to enable you to have more success as a superhero. But if you had no more connections, your character was unplayable. You were divorced from the game. So maybe you were an alien and you were called back to your homeworld. You were a godlike superhero and you no longer thought of humanity as being worth saving and you just left. Maybe you were a vigilante superhero and you were killed in a back alley. You could decide how your character leaves the game, but essentially there was a numerical value connected to your NPCs, and I like that. Can't believe the DM railroaded Peter when he tried to save Gwen. Yeah, yeah. Pack. Yeah. Ooh. Horrible sound effect, but amazing. Yeah. Says, by the way, you could run an all Spider-Man game. Yeah, all Spider game Into the Spider-Verse, basically Planescape meets Sliders. Yes, you could actually do. That's. Sorry. Leave this. What the heck? All right, I gotta hide this for a minute. Yep. You really could do a everybody's John kind of game where everyone's playing a variation of the same character. That's a great way to bring people together. As a matter of fact, we will talk about Flux Fall Horizon, which is a powered by the Apocalypse game written by a popular RPG tabletop role game reviewer, Dave Thalmavor, and his game. So we'll do that next week. We're going to do Pocket Sci-Fi, and I thought we would do that as a to let you guys know that this person actually has a game out there like that. But yeah, that'd be pretty fun. That'd be pretty fun to all play variations of the same character. That sounds kind of cool. Although, since we are talking about the boys, there is what's the Eclipse Phase has an introductory adventure called Ego Hunter, and science fiction, transhumanism, posthumanism, and the characters, they have pre-made characters, and each of the pre-made characters seems different. Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for using your finger to hit the algo, although I understand with me being in Ohio and you being from representing the Michigan News, I'm sure that finger is from the middle, but I appreciate it nonetheless. College rivalry from that town up north. The place up north. So the you distracted me. You got me squirrely. Doesn't matter. Okay, we'll get back to it because I'll remember. There's it is easy to get distracted in a live show when I have talking points in my head. I didn't write them down, but in Ego Hunter, all the pre-made characters seem completely different. They are physically different. They have different personalities, and you get to pick one. What you don't find out, spoiler alert, for an old adventure for a tabletop role-playing game that's been out for a while that you guys really should take a look at, is that because it is called Ego Hunter, you find out that the main bad guy has separate portions of his ego, his brain, and all the player characters are fragments of the main character's personality. So, in practice, all of the capabilities of all the player characters combined together is the actual personality and brain and background of the main character. But the player characters don't realize that because they're being hunted. They are both being hunted and investigating missing egos, and they're being hunted to be collected together or eliminated because the main bad guy is like, fragments of my personality are out there and they're on their own. They're just my property, so go ahead and kill them. So it's pretty cool. Is transhumanism in The Boys like they transform you into a splash of blood? No, nothing like that. The concept of using compound V is also a way, an allegory of sorts, so that you know, it is a MacGuffin that represents ultimate power. You don't know what that power will be, but it could possibly transform your life and your goals in life. And the players may need the help of the boys in terms of achieving a goal, while at the same time keeping them away from whatever powerful MacGuffin there is in your storyline. So if there is a compound V type of thing, whether it's arcane power or technological bleeding edge technology or modern day political influence or something of that nature, you're so wrong. You guys are wrong. It could be that, hey, we need the help of the boys, or ragtag group, but we also need to keep them away from the dangerous stuff, because all of them have good reason to want to partake, steal, modify whatever it is, whatever the substance is that will easily engender them to solve a situation or placate whatever situations that are happening in their lives. So yeah, absolutely something like that could happen. Now, in as enemies, the boys as enemies, we often don't see strange bedfellows together as a group of enemies. That used to be very common in the old action martial arts movies. We would see often in Saturday afternoons. I remember watching Kung Fu theater, and we would have a group. There would be like Silver Spear and Long Axe, Short Axe, and Scorpion and Centipede. It would be these various. Hey, hello everyone. What's going on there? You would often get these various types of characters. Thank you very much for stopping by over there on Twitch. Really appreciate it. This show does go live 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, and we simulcast on my Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitch. So talk about tabletop role-playing games, and specifically The Boys as a framework for designing a group of characters. Now, separately, this group might not be very powerful, but as an enemy, together, especially if they are very strange, may work in such great conjunction that it makes a lot of sense, and they're actually they are force multipliers for each other. If we want to use fantasy, they may have little to no relationship with each other, seemingly, but they've been brought together by a larger entity. So maybe there's a lycanthropic were tiger or something, and then there's also a drider, and then there's also a centaur, and then there's an Etten or a Cyclops or something. Like, you could just pull together like a bunch of like your favorite monster and monstrous entities and pull them together. One of a number of recurring characters I had in the story was a Medusa who was kind of a bounty hunter, and her bodyguard was an ogre who had a pet displacer beast, even though the displacer beast pretty much had the ogre as a pet in many ways. And it was those three, and then randomly, through as they would travel through the world, they'd collect a dozen lizard men, and then at one point she would have a pet basilisk, and then at another point the ogre would be able to like whistle and control a flock of bloodhawks, and then at another point, and it would just be this group, and depending on where the player characters were, this Medusa was with her bounty hunting group, and if they went through a desert, they'd find scorpion riders, and they get pulled along with them into a swamp, and in a swamp they'd have find a staff that would let them control a couple of giant alligators, and then they would join the group and stuff, and it would just keep going on and on and on. The boys from the comic or the boys live adaptation, there's a big difference. We're talking about the televised version, because not everyone has read or seen the graphic novel, and this is my personal opinion. I feel like the televised version does a better job in exploring the personalities of the characters and tells more of a cohesive story. The graphic novel is pure. What did someone call it? Tijuana Bibles or something. The black and white deviant cartoon books or whatever. It's a little bit more closer to that. That's my personal opinion. I love both of them, but they're completely different. But yeah, we're talking about the televised version. More people, I believe, have generally seen that. Yeah, it is insane. There's some depictions. I can't show any images from the comic series on this channel at all. Oh man, yes, the comic is insane. You hells yes. Weren't they always trying to prevent mixed good-evil parties in old school AD&D? A Boyle-style setting sure would put an end to that boringness. Yeah, yes, it is. Absolutely. Alignment had a lot more influence. And King's like, I want royalties. Yeah. You use that term? Yep. The Tijuana Bibles. Yep. So funny. Tijuana Bibles, this is from Wikipedia, were palm-sized erotic comics produced in the United States from the 1920s to early 1960s. Their popularity peaked during the Great Depression. Let's see if there's some really horrible imagery here. Silk Spectre. Oh, these aren't that bad. I can share this. These aren't that bad. Although they would take pop culture references, like here's a Mickey and Minnie in a compromising position, and things of that nature. So yeah. So yeah, the Tijuana Bibles. The other. Let me go back to this just in case they ding me a little bit. The algo dings me. But another way to represent I think the boys as enemies could just be that it doesn't necessarily need to be a misunderstanding, but the play. Oh, how am I gonna say this? Goals could be at odds, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil. It could be that, for example, maybe they represent a group of individuals trying to save their home, whether it's like a city state, or in science fiction, maybe they're trying to save their small community on a planet or a space hab or something of that nature. And the player characters are the ones who are usually the ones that are adventurous. They're running around. And this ragtag group of people may be like, listen, we don't mind you guys doing what you're doing, but you can't do it here. You know, it's the police procedural where you have the main characters are maverick cops out there shooting up everything and blowing up everything, going after the bad guys. And their partners, who are also detectives and police officers, are going, if you don't stop, we are going to have to stop you. We don't hate you, and we actually basically agree with what you're doing, but we can't tolerate how you're doing it. And so they could represent the opposing side of whatever the rules or structure is in your world. So an example could be, maybe it's a cyberpunk style world and the players are like, roided out. They've got cybernetics and drug injections, and they're hackers and stuff. And there's an arcology, basically a city-sized building that everyone lives in. And the boys could represent the gang that protects that building. That's their territory. And they're going, listen, you can go after the corporations all you want, but you can't, you're not allowed back in here anymore. You already caused enough death and destruction. And so while they may be strange bedfellows, they may come together and represent a barrier that the player characters can't go through. It may even try to shut them down or get them arrested or turn them over to the corporate police or something of that nature. Yeah, these aren't that bad. I can show these famous last words. I know. yeah. Maybe in a few days' time, YouTube is just like, we're going to have to ding you. Was prawn ever seriously banned in the U.S. back in the old days, hence adding to the market value? It was, if it wasn't outright banned, it was socially reprehensible. There are still people who are in today, as free as it is, that are in the adult industry that are unable to get bank accounts and loans and things like that related to their profession because the financial industries don't want to be associated with it, which is why OF took off, because it was one that was willing to finance and do those things for those individuals. It says, Haleo says, but I like the point the boys make. Power lays bar what kind of person you are. Like the powers that they get kind of it's kind of an external representation of who they are inside. Yeah, I would say that. I brought this up before. I'll bring it up again. George R.R. Martin's older Wild Card novel series, and I think there were graphic novels too that were made from it. And I think they even tried a television show that never got off the air. But in the Wild Card series, there was a virus that was spread amongst humanity that would expose your subconscious to it and mutate you by your subconscious. And 90% of people died from it, and died in the most horrific ways. Like, some people shrunk into nothingness, some people turned invisible, others turned into a tree, some people's skin turned inside out. Weird, their body turned inside out or something like that. Yeah. The Yankee says adult stuff was and is banned in many places. It's currently banned in Korea. I did not know that. Yeah. Yep. Like in this, Satanic Panic in the 80s, or William S. Burroughs' obscenity case in 1962. Yeah, I think it was pretty much like that. But it's always been, there's a case to be made for adult content and like explicit lyrics and things of that nature, and protecting it from young people, parents who want to, and communities that want to be able to decide whether they want that close to them or not. But then you can very easily go over that edge and go into a nanny state where people are making decisions for you as to what you want to engage in or not, and the community saying you're wrong for wanting to engage in this thing, and you're not having that choice. So yeah, there's always been the scales moving back and forth. Yeah, this country was founded by Puritans who were kicked out of Europe. Yep, founded if you don't count the native population. Yeah, we have a contentious history with the with with uh, with adult content. I know I upset. Uh, I used to have a coworker that I used to upset a lot because he would always talk about this was a Christian country and it's founded on the Christian values and stuff, and I'm like, that's weird because it took 400 years for all those Christians to think that slavery was wrong. But you go ahead and keep thinking what you're thinking. And he used to get so upset about that. He said, sure, I've experienced that myself during my foray to Kentucky. Yeah. Communities that have a very, very harsh rules about what you can or can't engage in, and looked at as a deviant because you don't engage in those rules and things. And usually they're usually social constructs, but yeah, sometimes based around religion, but not all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just we don't. It's the othering, right? We don't want those people in our community. And then of course you always have the rebels that dress and act and represent the rebellious group, and so they wear the uniforms of the rebellious group. And because if you hear my voice, you can hear me drawing it back to the boys, that the boys are absolutely positively the rebellious group. The way they dress and act, where they have to hide out, they are definitely, when we say ragtag, it's not just how they act, but where the tools they have to use. They have to, more often than not, they come up with a plan that never works, or at least doesn't work as intended. They have very few resources. They tend to be on the outside and outskirts. At the end of this fourth season, they are definitely on the run. And so, spoiler alert, so a group of this nature, if you want to incorporate them into your tabletop role-playing game, identifying them as the rebellious group is a good way to engender them for the player characters to want to say, hey, we are the same, we are similar. Like Robin Hood and his merry men, they're on the outskirts. They don't have many resources, and usually underdogs tend to be favorites of player characters. Not necessarily, but they could be. Or you could, like in a game like Legend of the Five Rings, where all the players, for the most part, play samurai in a neo-arcane medieval Japan. The NPCs could be people who don't represent that at all. They're the rebels. They don't follow the rules. Player characters meet them, and you come to find out that in their own way, they're more honorable and justified in their behaviors than a little bit. And that will be pretty interesting to make the ones who break the rules the heroes, and then the players may join them. Now, of course, players may already want to be that way, and maybe they can also represent the outcasts of a loose group of nations, and those outcasts could be of noble blood or parentage, or affiliated. The same thing is happening. Started a one note mood board on Pinterest. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Not wanting kids to see all that. Yeah, I'm with you there, Shice. Yeah. not wanting kids to see all that stuff is all well and good. The overarching issue is that censorship always backfires, like the Streisand effect. Yeah. Well, and also, there's the argument of what is censorship. So censorship is normally defined as government preventing open expression and speech, but a business or a home or an individual or religious institution not wanting something isn't necessarily censorship, because it doesn't prevent you from going elsewhere. It just means that in that place, store, movie, theater, library, library is more governmental, but I'm trying to think of non-governmental entities. A movie theater that doesn't want to play a movie isn't censorship, because you can always go to a different movie theater that's willing to play that thing. Buying a Walmart not selling a book that is salacious isn't censorship if you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and buy that same book. It's just that people like to have, like, for example, social media. I understand people's desire to want all social media to be open to everything and everything, amen, but that's not the case. Myself being on using Twitch and YouTube and Facebook, I'm in someone else's backyard. They belong to other people and other entities. They get to set the rules, whether I like those rules or not. And we tend to forget that part. We tend to forget that when you go over somebody else's house and they tell you not to smoke, take your shoes off, and that kind of thing. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. And when people get upset, it's only because we enjoy being there. And a lot of these entities are very massive, but that still doesn't change the fact that it belongs to something or someone. So, yeah. Shai says, okay, proper definition of censorship aside, now, it doesn't mean I disagree with you, right? Trying to prevent people from seeing some kind of shit is sure to draw attention to it. You damn right, yeah. And make them want to see it even if they didn't know about it before. It's just like there's like a book banning thing going on now in libraries, and people around the United States wanting to like ban books. And it's like, I never thought about that book, but you know what? I think I am going to go out and buy like Uncle Tom's Cabin and these other, what is it? I was about to say Anne Rice, books about, the Holocaust and all this kind of stuff. And people want to ban them because you have the ability to do it, right? And like you said, those people are drawing more attention to a thing, not realizing that they are drawing more attention to a thing than actually stopping the very thing that they thought they were trying to stop, had they not said anything. But whatever. Right? Oh man. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate all of you, especially coming in here from Twitch. I really appreciate that. I don't really promote myself very much, so if you want to do like some kung fu fighting on the algo and a couple of elbows and uppercuts and Superman punches, I would really appreciate that. So like we do that with a like, share, subscribe, follow, spreading the word of the channel, and also coming up with some ideas that you guys have to talk about. Again, we're basically just hanging around after the game and shooting the shit and whatnot. So next week we are going to go into science fiction. Let's see if I can bring up some of these. Oh, maybe I can. Oh, that's the boys. All right, I'm going to share this out to you guys just before I get out of here. So the I need a window. There we go. Here are some thumbnails I have for next week, and these are some of the games. That's today. These are some games that I have that are science fiction. science fiction's like the other white meat of tabletop role-playing games. There's a lot of fantasy games out there and some modern ones, and I thought I would bring some attention to some of these other smaller, I don't want to call them rules light because they are in depth in terms of their applications. So I will just say that they're an easier dip your toe into the waters if you want to introduce these games to other people. Some of them are a number of years older as well, successful Kickstarters and such. So here we have Dead Air Seasons, Flux Fall Horizon, made by Dave Thalmavor of our own community. We have a Substratum Protocol. It's a solo plus tabletop role-playing game, a bit of a journaling game, but it can be played with multiple people. By yourself, you make up your own scientists, but separately, everyone makes up their own scientists and delve into what's wrong with the center of the earth. Here we have Shadows over Soul, a transhumanist game played using playing cards, which is really cool. The horror, the gambling nature of the playing cards and the horror kind of combined together in it. I gotta send off an email for this group. And of course, we'll talk about Vast Grim, a science fiction tabletop role-playing game compatible with Morkborg, as it says so right here, and so on. So thank you very much for letting me show some of these off and see what you guys. Trying to ban Naked Lunch. I remember that movie. Surely made Burroughs a million times more famous than he ever would have been. But I digress. What was the... Yeah, there was a movie based on Naked Lunch that I tried to watch, and I was like, I don't get it at all. I don't get it. Says, don't forget to stop by the casino. Hey, that would be a good adventure hook too. But the casino? Oh, up in yes, absolutely. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, thank you very much for just stopping by on this Friday. Guys, have a great one. Thank you. Peace. I am out. Ooh, thank you. What should I take you out on? Let's go with something pretty basic. See you guys. Bye.